So now let's look at the method for this particular class. So there's a describe method, and this is a way for the class instances to actually perform actions, right? So the describe method is probably a way over here that the spacecraft can describe itself, and it has no arguments and a void return type. So it's basically using the properties of the class itself, like the name, the launch date, to describe the spacecraft. So this is a simple print statement with spacecraft and the name of the spacecraft. The dollar sign over here is actually used to resolve the actual value being stored inside the variable name rather than actually printing dollar name on the console. Then we get a launch date into a variable called a local variable called launch date. So this is the property of the class, whereas this is a variable local to this method body. Over here, the Dart compiler or the Dart runtime can actually check what the value is for launch date. If it's null, it can actually store it in a datetime object which is nullable. If it is not null, it can actually store it in a datetime object called just datetime, right? Not without the question mark, right? So that check and that's called type promotion, where Dart can actually store the variable in a type that is more restrictive, or that is more like what the variable is at runtime, rather than providing a broader variable type. Now, if the launch date is not equal to null, then this particular method will take the datetime class and call the now method, which returns the current date time, and then it's going to calculate. It's going to call the action called difference on that particular value of date time, and calculate the difference of the date time currently to the launch date. Then it's going to call a method in days, which is going to give you that value in the number of days. So it'll be an integer basically. And then the tilde / defines an integer division. So let's say you get like 900 days. So you'll divide 900 by 365 and just discard the decimal portion of it, and then assign that value to years, which is the name of the variable of type int. And then it's going to print the same thing. So it says launched, and then it's going to print the launch year, and then it's going to say these many years ago, right? And this particular launch year is going to come from this particular getter. Otherwise, if the launch date is equal to null, it's going to print unlaunched. And this is how this method works for this particular class. And this is how you would actually use this particular class. So to define a spacecraft, to define a new instance of a spacecraft, you would say spacecraft and then pass a name for this spacecraft and pass the launch date if it has been launched. Otherwise, you could actually define it without the launch date, and for that you would use the named constructor, which is unlaunched.